Welcome. It's just 3 o'clock as we get deeper into 2025. Welcome to another episode of the show that isn't afraid to say it as it is and is willing to bring all the conversations to the table. In a bit, we'll get into our main conversation today, where we'll tackle a deeply concerning topic that affects the most vulnerable amongst us, child abuse in Nigeria. Despite growing awareness, too many children continue to face neglect, exploitation, and harm. This is not just a social issue, it's a crisis that demands urgent attention and collective action. But before we get into that, let's break the ice a little.
Now, on Tuesday, we spoke to Dr. Kingsley Ugwanyi. He's a consultant to the Oxford English Dictionary on Nigerian English and other West African Englishes. We spoke to him about the Nigerian English words that were recently added to the Oxford English Dictionary. And I remember Blessings asked about local context, like asking a Nigerian child, "Are you mad?" versus asking an American child the same question. Now, they both have different understandings of mad in this context. But that's not the only thing we talked about after the show. We also talked about local pronunciations. Now, what happened was this. No, I'm going to tell the story before you tell the story. Please let me tell my story.
Blessings, thank God we're testimonies there.
What happened was, we were in the makeup room and I got a call from a dispatch guy. I'm not around, and he's not around, but my gate man is around. And I said, "Can you please knock on the gate and ask for Philip?" He said, "Who?" I said, "Please ask for Philip." He was capping. Her reaction beside me, and I said, "Please, ask for Philip."
Philip, which one is
It's not Philip, it's Philip.
And he understood it.
And then he said, "Okay."
So I could hear what he was saying at the other end. I went to Lou was saying, "Ask for Philip." We're like, "Philip." Philip. Cardinal said, "Philip." The guy just started laughing. I just knew that he understood.
But you know that half the time when you pronounce a little properly, in some spaces, they find it ridiculous.
Yes.
Like Philip.
Why are you saying Philip?
Excuse me, Philip is not as bad. This madam needs to share her story. Did you get yourself properly mic'd?
Yeah, no, technically, but I can. So
she needs to share her story and actually, because my Philip and Philip, they're not as bad.
It was learning work, where Blessings was
I came
concerned.
to Lagos, right? I was going to work one day, and then my brother was like, "Are you sure you know how to get there?" I'm like, I know how to get to Oshodi, it's just to enter bus. He said, "Okay, bye-bye." And then I stood at the bus stop for about 30 minutes. I was waiting for Oshodi. I did not see. I stood there and I was worried. I even called my brother. I was like, "Are you there?" I said, "I'm not there." So before I had called my brother, I kept hearing, "On the Oshodi, on the bridge, Osho, on the Osho, on the Osho." I'm like, so my brother called me and said, "Are you there?" I said, "No, I can't find Oshodi." He said, "You can't find." I said, "Yes, the only ones that I can hear Onda and I can hear Osho, but there's no one going to Oshodi." There was a guy, so there was this bus in front of me. The conductor
That's the kicker.
"Onda Osho, Onda." He was looking at me like, "What kind? Onda Osho." I didn't answer. And then he came and said, "Onda Osho." I said, "No." He said, "Mother-in-law." I said, "I'm going to Underbridge Osho." He said, "Oh, well, I'm going." I was so surprised, like, why is this so free? Like, the way he said, Osho. And I called my brother again. I said, "Is something happening?" He said, "Auntie, under Osho, under bridge Oshodi." After 30 minutes, and then eventually, with shame, entered the bus.
That's why you for this okay, they're calling Olusiwale.
Is that what they're saying?
They turned it into
I'm telling you, you don't hear the one that say, something, hey,
They will sell me.
You'll be saying, what's going on?
Have you not met people that say, I want to talk about the man in the picture?
Hey, God. No. My own was that, no, I was in a bus. See, this Lagos is stuff for the faint
Wait,
hearted.
is it now how this guy ended up in Ibadan?
Yeah.
Bro, look, my story.
No.
Oh, look,
She had
not there.
And she has ended up in Ibadan.
There's nothing that has not happened to
because of
me.
a train bus.
Oh God. This is her suffered. She has been through a lot.
It's God's grace on your life.
And they tell you.
You have been through a lot.
She has ended up in Ibadan. She has fallen out of a bus.
Falling into a gutter.
Like her bus stories are at this point. These bus stories are legendary.
No, yeah. No, my sister. In this small life that God brought you to live, your plate has been full.
No, her guardian angel will be tired. Auntie Angel will be tired.
No, I was like, you behave like an Agbero. I said, yeah, I've been one. A lot of things, man.
So, Captain, you wanted to tell us
It's what Lagos teaches you the first time you come to this town. My God, it's not for everybody. My siblings don't want to have a party to. You see, all of you are not normal, so I'm not going to be party to that. So the first time I came to Lagos, I was taking a bus. Hey, God, Anthony. From Isola, I was going to Anthony. So you say enter bus. You enter bus. You say you're going to Anthony. I say, okay. I entered bus. So Anthony.
So I was waiting for you to say Anthony. I'm like,
no, but the longest time when people would tell me Anthony, I'm like, which one is Anthony?
I say Anthony. I reached. They had taken me past Anthony. When I now said, but I said I was going to Anthony. They have passed, you know how Nigerians, I said, my sister. They said, we have passed Anthony since you photo Anthony. And they know Anthony. So you know how they bully you into saying what? I just said, Anthony. He said, Anthony would know. And they were saying it to Yoruba. They just assume everybody understood Yoruba. From then on, I knew that it's time to break my...
But you know this local context pronunciation.
I had to learn to be local.
Of course.
In
a lot of Muslims need to we need to ask them for mercy. Because so many of us do not even know how to pronounce Muslim names. No. Do you know how long it took us to call something like Risikatu? Rukaya. That was how we pronounced it when I was Auntie Biliki.
What is
But when you say Biliki, it's Bilkis. But I grew up to know Biliki is Biliki Su. So Nigerians will pronounce their Muslim names like
especially
how Yorubas, how they just feel.
Yes. Some of them, even the owners of the name, because of where they grew up, Biliki Lo call me.
Biliki Lo call me.
My name. So
I was using my English name when we were abroad, Lydia. I came back. I said, okay, let's see what happened. The first time somebody called me Lydia. Lydia. I heard Lydia again. I said, I heard Lydia. I said, it's okay. Just call me to look. It was not sounding Lydia. It was sounding so Lydia.
And they will call you, they do that. Catherine, Kate, all.
Kite, they don't call him
I realized it. Sometimes they know these things, right? But the fact that, like you said, it's just ridiculous that you're speaking like this guy that also Igbo. So they'll wait for you. Try and tell a bus conductor, I like to what? You pass your bus stop.
Yes. I would like to allow. Do you know that this thing happened to me in London one time? The first time I traveled, I would never. It was so shocking because everybody in the bus did not understand what was going on with me. You know, I didn't know that the bus had like
the next bus stop.
No, yes, you can see
destination.
it. Destination, the routes they were going. So every bus stop they get to, you just see Newbury, Newcastle. So I didn't know what's going on. But I knew the bus stop I was going. So I can say, driver, I'm getting down hard. Please, I want to get down.
Jesus. No.
Everybody was looking at me like, why is that making so much noise? Or
why are you talking to the driver? Why are you
talking to him? Then one Nigerian that was in the bus now.
No, the Nigerian behavior.
Yes, that you just press this thing, they stop.
Oh my gee.
Look, I don't think that thing can actually happen to me because I would rather, I've seen this case before. I would rather travel 5 hours and shout, oh wow.
I spoke English. I said, please, I'd like to get down.
Because we're used to telling the drivers
where you're going.
The station. But
so
everything's automated.
All you have to do is press that.
There's a stop.
You see like a red button on it. You just press, so it will tell the driver you were stopping. So the guy kept wondering that, why was I talking to him? And other people in the bus like, get off, people want to get off. I'm trying to tell the driver I'm going off. I'm going to try for where maybe they're not yet. I would like to get down. I'm almost in my bus stop. I said, just press.
See, I won't lie.
And she now showed me that every time you're near your bus, you look at this. So thank God it happened to me in a bus.
And there was a Nigerian brother or sister.
You will end up at the end of the route.
Yes.
Panicking. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
They're kidnapping you.
You don't say, please, I'm going to hear, oh, did you lose your way? Did you
lose your way?
You'll now be saying, yes, no, you'll be stuttering.
But wait, have Nigerians ever given you directions before?
Let's not.
Why do Nigerians give directions when
they don't know?
They don't. It's not that they're not even sure. They don't know.
They don't know.
Oh, just last Friday, I was going somewhere.
Your guardian angel is tired.
Only you want.
I was going to Carter Bridge and I was driving and I asked this guy, I'm like, he stopped me. I was going on my own and it was like, oh, guys, stop, I beg, where you they go? Make person direct you. I was like, okay, let me not form, right? Let me wind down and talk to him. And I wound down, I'm like, I'm going to Carter Bridge. Say, Carter. You want to Carter. Shamalo. I'm like, but you don't even say, and then I get outside. And then I went where it was going. And the road there was no road there. There was no way. And people were like, how did you get here? Like I was stuck in the middle of buses that parked. And I said, somebody they said, where are you going? I said, Carter. I said, Carter, you are go back.
She didn't say Carter is another one. The first that I said is Carter Bridge.
Okay. I said, thank God you didn't say Carter.
Carter Bridge.
My people, you know the first thing they'll say, what is worrying this one? I don't have to say but like you're not ready.
Is that like when we said that sachet water? I want sachet water, please.
He said we don't have.
No, what?
He said no. He said we have pure water.
I need pure water.
They'll carry it to this one. It's pure water. Okay, so I mean, it's great that we're starting the show on a light-hearted manner. If you're following us, feel free to drop your comments. Tell us what ridiculous thing has happened to you in Lagos, all because of language. But our main discussion is anything but light-hearted. Now, when we come back, let's talk from awareness to action, eradicating child abuse in our communities. Joining us to lead this critical conversation is Titilola Vivour-Adeniyi, the Executive Secretary of the Lagos State Domestic and Sexual Violence Agency. Together, we'll explore the realities of child abuse, the systemic gaps enabling it, and most importantly, the solutions to safeguard our future generations. So stay with us as we uncover the steps that we must take to build a society where every child is safe, nurtured, and empowered to thrive.
Welcome back to the show. Our topic today is one that demands urgent attention. This is 2025, and I would have hoped that we have made progress on some of the ills that bedevil our society, but it can feel like we haven't, and that's why conversations like today's remain necessary. Now, despite growing awareness, too many children still continue to face neglect, exploitation, and harm. It's not just a social issue. This is a crisis that demands urgent attention and collective action. Violence against children in Nigeria occurs in homes, families, school communities, and other places where children should feel safe. Child abuse is a scourge that affects not only the victims, but also the very fabric of our society. So joining us today to have this conversation is someone who's known to be a tireless advocate for the fight for the rights, for the protection of society's most vulnerable. Titilola Vivour-Adeniyi is the Executive Secretary of the Lagos State Domestic and Sexual Violence Agency, a perfect guest to hold this conversation with, as she has been at the forefront of tackling these issues. Titi, thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. All right, let's just dive into it. It's always a pleasure to have you with us, Titilola. Okay, let's start from a case that has garnered nationwide attention and in some ways put a spotlight on child abuse again. Last week, a very disturbing video went viral online of a teacher at Christ Methods International School in Ikorodu physically assaulting a 3-year-old pupil during a numeracy lesson. The teacher, identified as Stella Nwadigbo, was suspended by the school and arrested. She was arraigned at the Ogba Magistrate Court on January the 9th, 2025, where she pleaded not guilty to the charges. The court set a bail at $200,000 with two veritable sureties and has been remanded at the Kirikiri Correctional Facility pending the fulfillment of the bail conditions. The case is scheduled for trial on the 18th of January 2025. Titilola, the DSVA is involved in this case. Is there any update you can share with us?
Okay, so I won't speak too much in details about the case because I don't want to jeopardize investigation. But suffice to say that the suspect, the teacher, is in custody. And what we have done is to inform the Directorate of Public Prosecutions to consider taking over prosecution of that case. The case was adjourned to the 18th of February, I believe, for trial. And so we're hoping that on that day, the DPP would enter appearance and basically take over prosecution. We believe that this is important to send a strong message, to the society that such is not tolerated, and the full arm of the law will be brought to bear on perpetrators.
All right, so when we looked at this case last week, I was shocked and unfortunately in some ways also not surprised by some of the reactions online. Some comments said, oh, this is normal correction. Who didn't go through this? And some children are stubborn and this is what they need to be able to learn. There's nothing wrong here. Let's be honest, many people have called out what the teacher did, but there were still quite a number of people who apparently didn't see anything wrong with what she did. So I want us to look at this in terms of what we should make of these justifications. Should we be worried that people are still willing to excuse this kind of behavior in 2024, 2025?
Tolu, the truth is we're all a product of our socialization. It's how we were brought up, right? So I actually saw the comments. Some people said, oh, my mother or my father did worse. I know, and thank God that molded me, that shaped me into who I am today, The truth is, we are all a product of our socialization. It's what we grow up and how we grew up that we bring into adulthood. So if a person was conditioned to see that display of violence as normal, then it's very likely that that is the reaction that they would give, because to be honest, they don't know better, right? And I think that's the scary part where violence has been so normalized, especially when it concerns children. And it's not, it's not limited to physical abuse. The way some parents talk to their children, idiot, stupid, they say such hurtful words that affect the children's self-esteem and their self-worth. So truly, it's going to take a lot for us to get to where we want to get to, because we did not get here overnight. But, a lot is being done to reorientate the mindset, to change behaviors, which we believe is critical in reversing this ugly menace. Absolutely. Or this ugly trend.
Yeah.
So I think it's also important to ask about the 3-year-old in question. It was reported that he was hospitalized after the incident. How is he doing now? Is he getting therapy for what must have been a traumatic experience? And is it true that he suffered, I don't know, hearing deficiency? I don't know.
Some kind of injury.
Yeah, some kind of injury in his ears.
Oh, yes. Okay, so, part of the procedure for addressing this case was to make sure that, we examine the child to make sure that there are no injuries or no disability was caused as a result of the several slaps. So the child was seen at the Ikorodu General Hospital. I was privileged to meet with him and his mom on Monday, and all is well, all appears well. We are trying to provide, well, not us, but government, the Ministry of Youth and Social Development particularly, has already started to commenced assessments, just to make sure that, everything that is required to ensure that he is able to move past this traumatic ordeal, this traumatic incident, is offered to both him and the mom. Because, there are some other peculiar issues which unfortunately I'm not allowed to disclose, but there's a need to support the family as a system.
You know, I'm so sorry, Catherine. When we talk about domestic violence, we've had you on the show to talk about domestic violence and sort of like the cultural and traditional ideas around women and men that sort of lay foundations for domestic violence. Are there cultural and traditional ideas that sort of excuse child abuse? Do we have a situation where people sort of feel like because they've given birth to this child, they own the child, they can do with the child whatever they want to do with the child? Because do we also have to address cultural ideas of parenting and the parent-child relationship, traditional ideas of parenting and the parent-child relationship in order to get people to see that what they're doing is wrong? Are we also battling, and even religious? Yeah. You know, there's religious connotations to child abuse because children are meant to listen to their parents and they have no say in certain things. Are we also battling that the same way we battle it when it comes to domestic and sexual violence when it comes to women and girls?
Emphatically, yes. Because we are a cultural people. You know, let me just give an example. There was a case that came in sometime last year. And a mandated reporter, so we call them mandated reporter, a good Samaritan, reported that this particular neighbor was in the habit of physically abusing her daughter. So we got the address, we got all the information, and we went in, you know, and effected a rescue. So when we were engaging with the mom, you know, she couldn't understand why we were doing this. Because she said, this is my child, you know. Give birth to this child. Is government going to tell me how I should take care of my child? You know, so she couldn't understand for the life of her that, you know, yes, you gave birth to the child, but you owe a duty of care. And whilst you are correcting, you should not blur the line of child abuse, you know. So again, it speaks to socialization, culture, religion. I mean, you have that text, spare the rod, spoil the child. You know, sometimes pictures are taken out of context. You know, it says, the same Bible says, you know, thy rod and thy staff comfort me. So you do it in love. You have the rod, you have the staff. You correct and you pull the child close, you know. And if we start to talk about discipline, I mean, we won't finish this conversation because, you know, the jury is still out on what discipline is. But truly, discipline is about, it's to teach. It's not to instill fear. It's not to break the psyche or the self-esteem of the child, where the child hears that their parent is coming from one way, the child is fleeing the other, and you as a parent, you think that you are inculcating values. No, just what you're doing is instilling fear in that child. You know, so there's a difference. There's a very thin line between correction and discipline. So, you know, sometimes when we have this conversation, some people say, oh, this is Africa, this is Nigeria, we have our culture. And even the law, particularly Section 201 of the Criminal Law of Lagos State, allows for correction of children. But it's very clear. It says that grievous harm must not be inflicted on the child. It goes further to say that it must not be unreasonable. And there are certain factors that should be taken into account, such as the age of the child, the mental state of the child, the physical well-being of the child. And the child must be able to understand the reason for the correction. So it's important for us to have this at the back of our minds when we're having this conversation about correcting children and instilling discipline.
Yeah. I think most of us have witnessed and have grown sometimes with that in mind, saying that that's why the perception, the majority of what people are saying is that, oh, we grew up like this and it became the normal. But we know as you grow up and you're becoming adults and you're facing society and you're making decisions, you realize that there are some traumas that you took as a child growing up that has become such an intrinsic part of you that you have to be intentional about relearning them, about leaving them from where you are and moving to the next phase of your life. So just looking at the reactions of some of these people to the case makes it clear that many of us still do not know what actually constitutes child abuse. People rarely know. In fact, but some people I can be very certain in saying that some people don't know the difference between correcting and discipline. So for clarity, understanding, and awareness, Titi, what is child abuse?
Okay, so child abuse, simply put, is anything that is done that is not in the best interest of the child. And that can be gotten from Section 1 of the Child Rights Law, which basically says that anything we do as practitioners, as parents, as caregivers, as people that have interface and interaction with children, it must be the best interest of the child. So if we understand it at that level, then it makes sense that when we're talking about child abuse, the different forms of child abuse, we know that it's not in their best interest. We talk about physical abuse, we talk about emotional abuse, you talk about neglect, you talk about sexual abuse. You know, all of this is not in the best interest of the child.
Well, you know, Titilola, hearing you speak, you are, and I understand the culture side of these things. It seems as if you are talking something strange, because when you described what you described in the first instance, how children perceive discipline. Of course, I understand Basbos as a child. It was the only way our parents would say they corrected us. And now that we're talking about child abuse, I think we need to really begin to speak more about the definition of what child abuse is, and just as you have rightly described. And I know there are many types. You have already said emotional abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, mental. There's so many abuse that can happen to a child. But now we're seeing that a lot of children are going through this kind of abuse. Imagine this boy got home that day. He probably could have run a fever or isolated himself, held his face to his hand, because just looking for some kind of comfort. What do we need to start to look at, or what are the telltale signs that we might need to begin to look for in children? Or maybe let's even focus on school to be able to say that maybe this child has been abused in some way or the other. Because now I want to tell you that categorically all of us are being re-educated because a lot of people lack education.
Yes. So we say that there's usually a change in behavior. If you want to observe, you know, a pattern, if you want to determine whether or not a child has been abused, or a child is being abused, or a child is at risk of being abused, there's usually a change in behavior. So, and so as parents, as caregivers, we really have to be intentional about parenting. We can't just overlook certain things that, you know, others will overlook. So a change in behavior. Perhaps this child used to be very vocal. This child used to be the life of the party. Once the child comes into a room, everybody knows that, oh, Sandra is in the building. All of a sudden, the child is withdrawn, or the child is withdrawing. The child is no longer desirous of doing certain things that used to bring fun to him or her. If it's for sexual abuse, I mean, some children are overly sexualized. Some children, even the way they walk is different because of the pain in the genital area. Some children are apprehensive of a particular adult, you know. Let's assume somebody comes into the room, that's the abuser, and the child just, you know, quickly goes behind the mom or the father. Your knee-jerk approach will be, come on, go and say hello to Mr. Rufus. But we need to find out as a parent, you know, why is this child running away from Mr. Rufus? So you can call the child aside later and say, what happened? Talk to me, is there an issue? And you may just be amazed with what that child will disclose. There's also the other signs such as regression in terms of their behavioral minds, in terms of their milestones. Some children resume bedwetting as a result of the trauma. There's rebellion. Some children become rebellious because that's their own way of acting out. Again, I said some children become withdrawn. But so there are always telltale signs. The question is, are we listening?
Yes. Titilola. Okay, please let me get you to pause very quickly. We want to go to Abuja right now. Today is Armed Forces Remembrance Day 2025, and we've had the Vice President of Nigeria, Kashim Shettima, as well as the FCT Minister, as well as the Senate President, I beg your pardon, Godswill Akpabio, laying wreaths for fallen members of Nigeria's military and the armed forces. So let's quickly take what's happening in Abuja now.
of Defense Staff, General Defense Staff, General Chief of Army Staff, the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Olufemi, the Chief of Naval Staff, Vice Admiral Staff, Vice Admiral, the Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal Hassan Abubakar, General of Police, and the Inspector General of Police, IGP Kayode Egbetokun. Stepping on next to the representative of the diplomatic corps, His Excellency, Mr. Abbas Ibrahim, High Commissioner of the Republic of Cameroon, and the Dean of the Diplomatic Corps. Nigerian Major General and the representative Mrs. Olubunmi Eseokiti. Excellency, the Vice President, distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, to the end of the ceremony for today's occasion. is a firing of the volleys. The firing of the volleys is a ceremonial act performed at military funerals. Once again to our dignitaries not to panic at the sound of the guns. Thank you. Please salute. Thank you. And the last respect is honor of the fallen officers and warrant officers uniform. I please request our guest for the
And those are live visuals there from Abuja, the capital of Nigeria, with Armed Forces Remembrance Day 2025. The Vice President being the main dignitary there. As we know that President Bola Tinubu is in Abu Dhabi for the Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week. So Vice President Kashim Shettima being the main dignitary as we remember our armed forces, laying wreaths for those who have lost their lives in sacrifice to the country and service to the country, and also honoring those who are still alive. You are watching Jasiri. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll return to our conversation. Stay with us.
You're still watching Jasiri, and we have been having a very extensive conversation. We've been talking very importantly about child abuse, what the causes are, how we can salvage the situation, how we can prevent that, if not completely get rid of it in the society. And we still have our guest, Titilola, who has been discussing with us. So very quickly, Titilola, my apologies. Titilola, despite growing awareness, the reality of many children remains grim. Now, with abuse manifesting in various forms, including physical, emotional, sexual, and neglect. We have been talking about this extensively, and one of the things that I am very particular about is the consequence of childhood abuse. We've talked about it here several times, how people grow up with such trauma that we're seeing manifesting now, even in adults. So what would you say are these consequences, and how can they manifest in the lives of children when they become adults?
Okay, so we actually have data that reveals that children who grow up either abused or witnessing intimate partner violence are at a high risk of being abusive in adulthood or being attracted to people that would abuse them in adulthood. And so it shows that truly this violence can be intergenerational, it can be generational, because if they grew up witnessing abuse, they grew up being abused themselves under the guise of discipline, and they do not receive superior information, there's a high likelihood that they would, in adulthood, be abusive to either their spouse or their children. Hence the term generational or intergenerational form of abuse. There's also research that has shown that children who are abused in childhood carry that trauma, and that trauma affects their capacity to do different things. It affects their ability to be proactive. It impinges on their grit, their tenacity, and their resilience. Because of what they've gone through in childhood, you know, they don't have grit, they don't have tenacity, they give up easily, you know. They can't take risks because when they try to in childhood, you know, there was certain level of inhibition that they experienced. So it does more harm than good. Bringing children up in abusive environments or abusing children, you know, it doesn't do anything. There's no positive in it. We are not saying that children, again, we are not saying that children should not be corrected. What we are saying is the manner in which they are corrected goes a long way in building or destroying who they are as a person, and obviously who they will be as adults.
Titilola, I know many times you have said that we are all mandated first reporters, meaning that if you see something, you must say something. But I know that this is easier said than done. We're still struggling to speak out when it comes to domestic violence, especially against children, adults, women, girls. Now we're talking about speaking out for children when it comes to child abuse. With child abuse, many people just look the other way because there's so many things that are tied to it, especially culture, religion, that enforces you that they are training. So you should look the other way. And our society, the way they view parent-child relationship is a bit different. A lot of people will say that the thing that we're trying to push for now is Western culture. And that is something that they are not aware of. So how can communities, individuals, you know, take proactive steps to prevent child abuse? Or what can we all do, especially as schools, as religious organizations, local leaders, you know, thought leaders, towards the safeguarding of our children? What can we do better?
And, you know, a good number of cases that come to us about child abuse is actually from mandated reporters. You know, people are more sympathetic, obviously, towards children. You know, if an adult survivor, you would say they are married, you know, God hates divorce, you know. So when they want to sort it out. But children are actually, people are more sympathetic towards children. So, and I think that culture of mandated reporting is gradually being entrenched in the fabric of our society. I think what's important for mandated reporters is the anonymity. They don't want their identity to be disclosed so that it doesn't, you know, come back and they are not reprised. Yeah, because don't forget, they are in the community. They are the ones in the community. So if people know that they are the ones that reported, then there will be, or there might be a backlash. So I just want to continue to encourage, you know, especially residents of Lagos, to continue to see themselves as mandated reporters. You know, inform us about issues, give us, you know, exact information, location, landmark, so that we can come in to the needful. In terms of what we can do, honestly, it's about mainstreaming this issue into the different sectors, mainstreaming it into our education sector, ensuring that all child-centered institutions have safeguarding and child protection policies. And it's not just enough to have this policy, it's to ensure full implementation. And because state government has actually led the way in this regard, we passed the executive order on safeguarding and child protection in 2016. And under the leadership of Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu, we have ensured that this policy is adopted, especially in the school settings. It's not enough for us to say we have a policy. We need to build capacity of the service providers to know about the policy, to know what their role is. So when we're talking about service providers, we're talking about guardians, counselors, we're talking about school social workers, we're talking about heads of administrators. We're talking about their roles in making sure the letters of that policy come alive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Schools must have designated and safeguarding child protection officers. This is a trained personnel whose duty is to receive disclosures. That person is also mandated to conduct routine engagements on child's rights, responsibilities of children, empower children with relevant information, because the truth is, children have a role to play in their own protection, right? It's important for the schools to paste, important posters in conspicuous places. Some schools have suggestion boxes where children can, write a note and, say what is wrong with them, either from the school setting or from home. Build capacity of the guidance counselors to be able to detect signs. Yes. I'll give an example of some of our successes. So there was a guidance counselor that reported a case. She said, this particular child, at the end of school, she would notice that this girl would not want to go home, which was bizarre because most children want to go home after school, right? So she took an interest in her. The first time she said, oh, go home. Everybody is going home, go home. So this was a Wednesday. Thursday, the same thing. The girl, did not want to go home. She was just hiding in a corner. So because her index of suspicion was up, she noticed that something is odd. Yeah. So she probed. And the girl now disclosed that her father has been sexually abusing her for the past 6 months. And that Friday is when the mom goes for vigil. And that's when, it will just be between him and her. So she felt that there's no way I could go home that night because he's going to do what he has been doing. So it was the intervention of the guidance counselor that saved the day. Immediately, she escalated to the district and we ensured that that child was rescued.
Titilola, I want to follow up because we all reacted here, but I recently found out that the DSVA is doing parents and guardians online courses. And that was quite interesting to me, especially in the context of Nigeria. It feels like once you have a child, people just automatically assume you know how to do everything, you know how to react. A lot of us have anger issues. People have to deal with how they react to their children so that they create these safe spaces for these conversations. Why did this course become necessary? What has the DSVA seen that made this course a necessity? And what does it look like? What does it take parents and guardians through? And unfortunately, we have like 2.5 minutes just to have this part. And I think it's really quite interesting to look at a course that is tailored for parents and guardians on child abuse and raising children. So talk to us about that in the little time we have left.
Okay, very quickly. So over the years, we've embarked on different engagements with parents through the parent-teacher forums in the schools. And we found out that there was that knowledge gap because truly you can't give what you don't have. If you cannot detect it, that your child is being abused, how do you help the child? So our routine engagement with parents, engagement with guidance counselors, that's ongoing, going to the grassroots, engaging parents about how to, correct, how to discipline, how to love and all of that. But we believe in leveraging technology because, we can't reach everybody, physically. So that platform, actually the safeguardingchildren.org.ng, it's a learning platform where we have different modules for guidance counselors, teachers, and now this new one for parents. So we have 3 erudite facilitators, take parents on culture, child's rights, detecting signs of abuse, handling disclosures, referral pathway to be activated, bullying, all things that pertain to children, making sure that we are able to raise children that are whole, we put together on that platform. And it's free. It's at no cost. This is just our own way, of supporting parents. We are with them in the journey, and we're not just telling them to do the needful. We are showing them how to do.
Wow. I want to say a very, very big thank you to our guest, Titilola Vivour-Adeniyi, Executive Secretary for the Lagos State Domestic and Sexual Violence Agency here in Lagos State, for shedding light on the challenges and solutions we need to protect our children. This conversation is a reminder that the fight against child abuse is not just the responsibility of the government or organizations. It's a fight for all of us. Every child deserves a safe, nurturing environment to grow and to thrive. Let's commit to being vigilant, speaking out and taking action when we see signs of abuse. Remember, a change begins with each of us, and together we can build a society where every child is protected. I want to say thank you very much for joining us today. Until the next time that will be in your faces, that is tomorrow, please stay safe and keep yourself informed.
Thank you so much, Titi.
Thank you, Titi.
We'll see you next time.
Thank you.